This conference will now be recorded.
All right, everybody. This is Jordan Girth with the National Weather Service Office of Observations. I hope you're staying well. Welcome to the Satellite Book Club seminar series. This is session number 38. The presentation today is Introduction to AWIPS cloudReach. It will be presented by Lee Byerle of our very own TOWR-S team. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to interact with Lee and our TOWR-S team in the past. The facilitator for today is Carl Jones, a meteorologist from the Grand Forks Weather Forecast Office. Just a few reminders before we get started. This session is being recorded and there will be an opportunity for Q&A after the presentation. Please post your questions in the chat and we will field them in the order they are asked. We're also looking for future presenters, so if you have a novel application that's useful across the Weather Service, please get in touch with us. The training team can help create training materials that may be unavailable or you might be unaware of. Brian Mata and his team with the Office of the Chief Learning Officer can provide information or field your questions regarding that. I'd also like to introduce an addition to our satellite team here, a new satellite liaison. Connor is a satellite researcher and science coordinator at CIRA, working with the NWS Operations Proving Ground in Kansas City, Missouri, to add in the research to operations process and evaluation of new satellite products for operations. You can see Connor Nelson's information here on the slide in front of you. Please feel free to get in touch with him. He's going to be stepping into big shoes that Chad Gravel previously held. I'd just like to thank the TOWR-S team, particularly Kershad Bowman, Office of the Chief Learning Officer, GOES-R, and JPSS for their support of the Satellite Book Club. I hope everybody's staying well. It's the last Thursday of meteorological winter. Month of March is ahead. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lee Byerle, who joined the TOWR-S team in 2015, where he supports the GOES-R program and NWS Office of Observations and the transition of new satellite capabilities into operations. He also supports the AWIPS program and the National Centers AWIPS transition project. Prior to TOWR-S, Lee supported the USGS Land Remote Sensing Program and an Earth Observation Requirements Initiative from 2013 to 2015. Was previously in the Air Force as a weather officer for 20 years. So without further ado, Lee, welcome back to the Satellite Book Club.
Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate that and appreciate the chance to come back and to talk to everyone again. I have a presentation today that will be a little bit brief, but we wanted to go into some of the exciting cloud capabilities and opportunities we've been involved with a lot of you in the community. And so I would like to get that started by talking about an introduction to TOWR-S cloudReach. TOWR-S is obviously a total operational weather readiness for satellites. That's our acronym, and we support and at the behest of the GOES-R Program Office and the Office of Observations. So appreciate the opportunity to do this on their behalf today. And so here's a quick outline of what we'll be talking about today. What's the concept of this cloudReach? And then as we began doing this over the last maybe a few months, 6 months or so, we've come up with some types of sessions. So we're going to set the stage with what kind of sessions that we could have when we meet in the cloud, a little bit on the data and tools and how we do it, and how will we prepare for a session. And we'll talk a little bit about some ways to do that to make the most out of a collaboration when we work in the cloud. Okay, and we'll go with some examples and then some of the takeaways. Yeah, so we can go on to the third slide. Okay, so what is cloudReach? So our goal with cloudReach is to bring people together in the environment used by the Weather Service in operations. And there are a high number of priorities and projects that the Weather Service is committed to. And so we're focusing efforts like this on being able to help prioritize and maximize those efforts and the integration of new data and products into operations. And so we found a great way to do this was to host focus sessions with small groups of forecasters, remote sensing scientists, technique development meteorologists from around the community. And these could basically just take the great cloud services that are out there now that have been built by and made available by the AWIPS Program Office, STI, Ken Sparrow and Jason Burks, and all the work that's been done for AWIPS in the cloud, and taking those tools and putting them in the cloud so that we could have multi-use types of gatherings, whether it's a forecaster to forecaster within an office, going over a past event, or maybe there's an WFO collaboration that can be had by revisiting an event. It might also be a forecaster developer exchange, where there are new products that have been committed to that are going to be implemented across the end-to-end into operations, but maybe we can go earlier in that process of implementation and maximize how these products are going to be implemented. So cloudReach is an initiative that TOWR-S facilitates. We provide the data. We invite you to come on. Think about it as like a dinner party, small groups of 5 to 10 folks, where we listen, the guests talk, we take notes, and we provide the meal, so to speak. And I won't go too far with the analogy, but we do things to help maximize this type of engagement. And throughout this presentation, I'll go touch on each of these very briefly. So if we go on to the next slide. So if we look at the types of sessions, when we think of this cloudReach, we're picturing different types of sessions where we might have a post-analysis of a mission scenario and maybe connect into that situation and look at what could have been done differently or maybe better between the mission and the products and all of the various aspects that go to putting out that product. And so when we think of the sessions, we want to think of who's the focus. Is it a forecaster focus, where the forecasters are going back and saying, hey, I didn't have radar and I'd like to revisit that case, and maybe there's a way to see where satellite had a very central role in that. And there may be other cases where the focus is the developer. The developer has the opportunity to tailor these new incoming capabilities better to operations. And so it might be a forecaster developer. It might be a forecaster who's a technique developer who's interacting with another group of forecasters. So it could be any of a number of combinations here. And here's just a list of some types of sessions that we've experienced and that we envision. And you can see here, for instance, pre-gaming would be a situation where maybe there's a convective season coming up. Let's get together, let's have a small session to see what types of cases we could be expecting in the future, and how can we use resources available to us to maybe pre-game that together using resources in the cloud. So now that we've looked at the different types of sessions, what if we let's go and talk about the tools and what we're talking about for doing these types of things. So if we go to the next slide. So just touching briefly on the data and tools. So in the cloud sessions, we have the ability to bring up the AWIPS sessions and with various data sets that are used in operations, including the SBN. And we focus in on products that are being, that the Weather Service is committed to. For instance, GOES ICE products is a potential implementation to different stages of its maturity throughout the next year or so for cryosphere products. And so things that are flowing out for DevOps already, things like, again, those ICE products, these are the types of data sets that we're able to capture and store using all of the resources that are in the cloud at our disposal already. So we currently capture a 30-day set of this data. We can also take any third-party data, and we can manually store that up in the cloud. And so the purpose of that is being able to access this data and put it into an AWIPS session at will, and as we would like to do it, one of these types of session revisits. So we can go in to the cloud, and we have some, we're using available tools, but we can take some of the tools that are out there and grab certain data sets, certain times, load them up, and then this can help us have a session to discuss some of these case studies. And it's all data, and not just satellite data. A lot of you may think of the TOWR-S team as satellite people with the RPMs, and we certainly are. But we're looking at integrating all aspects of the data when we do sessions like this. And so on that note, let's just talk about how we would prepare for one of these sessions now that we've talked a little bit about the data. So if we can go to the next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what TOWR-S sees as the role for getting ready for one of these sessions. First, finding a lead, someone who would be the lead representative for that, and then planning a bit about what kind of session this is going to be. Is this an ask an expert kind of a situation, or is this forecaster to forecaster discussion? So we would first, of course, identify the goal, identify the products and the events that are central to this, and then we'll just put things together, put together a timeline, get the localization and the procedures for AWIPS, for instance. And so we're trying to set the stage in advance for a session where we get together for like an hour or so and go over like a case study. So I've written down a couple of items here that would be involved in a case study. Writing down the situation. Was there a certain set of stages of a situation that involved certain aspects of a storm or an incident, and then gathering some of the other stuff that could set the stage for a good interaction. We take notes, we record and conduct follow-up. We can record the sessions if we'd like, but again, this is all doing a session in the cloud. These are the kind of things that we look at for preparing a session. So now that we've talked a little bit about preparing for a session and just really quickly touched on some of the tools and types, let's show a few examples of what we've experienced so far using the cloud. So the next set of slides has a number of pictures and examples that we've experienced with some of our sessions so far. So each of the pictures I'm going to show you are from a Cloud AWIPS session, except for one. And so if you have to maybe pay attention so you know which one that is, because one of them is not from a cloud session, but actually I'm only kidding because it's actually labeled where it's from. But this particular picture here is just, there's a story behind each one. This was a case study. So as we were getting some of our data and tools going in the cloud, we had discussions with OPC about revisiting events, and one of the events came up when a fishing vessel got in a bad situation out over the Pacific last December in this storm system that's over east of the date line there. You can see in the IR imagery. And so OPC wanted to go back and take a look at the meteorological situation for this event. And so we loaded up a set of data sources. You can see the data sources for this revisit. And this was a chance to go back and look at this case, which was an unfortunate mishap event for a fishing vessel on the 29th of December last year. And again, a number of data sources listed here. We have moving maritime, these kinds of things. Just this idea where we're trying to integrate and understand and help the scenario itself, and not just the satellite data, but where does the satellite data fit in? Or is it central, and those sorts of things when we're doing these types of things. So that's an OPC case study revisit. Let's try another one here. Before we do that, there's one more here just real quickly of the scat winds over that storm, the really bright reds of the hurricane force winds. So it was one of the other aspects we looked at for that case. Okay, so we can go on to the next slide. We were fortunate to meet with Amarillo Forecast Office several weeks ago to talk about a situation in which there was no radar coverage, or there was limited radar coverage during a storm system that was migrating its way and causing snow squalls. And I didn't want to go too much into this one because this basically is a chance to introduce and send an announcement for next week. We're going to have a radar panel with Huntsville and the Amarillo office to talk a little bit more about the general topic of when the radar is down. And the biggest thing we see in this picture is a big empty area of radar coverage right in the middle, covering the Amarillo Forecast Office with the MRMS and the light blues surrounding the area. So this was a post-event analysis within the office, and we did that a few weeks ago. If we go on to the next slide, here's just a picture representing some of the winter campaign activities we've been doing, where we've been presented with a brand new set of ice products from the GOES program. There are a number of new ice motion and ice thickness and ice concentration products that are coming out. And we've been really fortunate to meet with offices around the Great Lakes to talk about how these products can impact and assist with operations. Nick Langlieb at Marquette has really been instrumental in leading these discussions. This is a user feedback situation where many of the developers have been that have been working these products from NESDIS were on the phone and on the line here with us in AWIPS, looking at how the products can potentially apply to lakeshore flooding events. And so this is just a really good example where we can identify those application questions early in the transition process, and we can actually access or take the opportunity to take care of what we call sometimes within our groups stupid stuff, and that stupid stuff is the stupid stuff that we're responsible for. Many great algorithms are written, artificial intelligence, all these wonderful work going on, wonderful forecasting going on around the Weather Service, but there are certain things with the implementation phase that we really want to get right, and it's really our role in some of the implementations of doing the stupid stuff, like making sure the color maps are right. Or the units are in a way that apply to operations. And so, for instance, in this case, we learned the ice thickness really needed to have a color scale that was within bounds and was in units of feet. And so we look at exchanges like this to be able to take care of not only the bigger questions, but the stupid stuff as well. At the bottom of this slide, there's a nice sentence in here that Nick sent along about what this type of user feedback does. So it includes this opportunity for this dialogue for understanding the science from the technique development perspective, and of course for the developers, Jeff Key and all the wonderful work that's been going on for these products to hear firsthand this feedback. And so we continue these sessions. We have another one planned, and this one was on February 3rd, and we're off to a good start. In the next slide, there's another example. In this case, this is similar as a user-developer exchange. We've received feedback on the relevance of the GOES turbulence product, which shows a probability of turbulence in these shaded colors. And this is a chance to get those exchanges going with the number of CWSUs and other offices around, the AWC representatives as well, and to see how this product is performing. And so back on the 19th of February, Sean Campbell led a gathering along with the developer, Tony Wimmers, and we started discussing or continued discussing this product. And this particular image here is provided to us from Tom Amos from the Fort Worth CWSU, showing the high-level VOR light tracks, the turbulence reports, and the turbulence probability. The particular turbulence probability here is valid up at 36,000 feet. And so some of the turbulence reports there are included. Tom also provides some sampling information of the pilot reports that are shown there. Again, this is a great user-developer exchange where we've learned a little bit more about the product, but also provided feedback about how this product performs and what steps we're going to go toward operational, what are the next steps for implementation. If we go to the next slide, a couple more here. This one here is a great opportunity just to highlight quickly some of the activity with the training community. There's going to be some formal training material prepared that's going to come out for all the forecast offices to have access to through Comet. And this is an opportunity to get into the cloud and start getting some of those products together by taking and looking back at historical data and loading up. This was a derecho event from last summer. So Tony Magus, Patrick Dills of UCAR, as well as Joseph Patton of University of Maryland Success Project have helped us here. And along the way, we've had some feedback about the relevance of the minimum flash area product, and can we have an SBC on that topic? And so this is a great opportunity You know, one of Joseph's going to come and join us again for an SBC in a few several weeks from now. We're going to go into operational impacts or application of the MFA product, and so that'll be coming up a little bit later. I believe that's the last example. If we go to the next slide. So just going and summarizing, this is really exciting to us because as we are able to go around the community, we're learning more about what's needed and how the implementations can be smarter and what those implementations should be among this very very demanding set of new projects that we're helping the Weather Service implement. So again, this is to foster that collaboration and the integration of the most important aspects of satellite data into the Weather Service mission. We'd like to conduct these sessions twice per week. And again, we're going to facilitate the data and the resources. We're going to try to do the homework to maximize the efficiency. And we think these sessions can get the conversation started. Think of it again, just as sort of a funny analogy of a meteorological dinner party, where we're having, we look for a small gathering. We have bring our friends together, and the idea is for us who are facilitating to listen. And again, these sessions can range from case studies to improvements to product calibration evaluation, and there are different areas of the community to focus on, whether depending on the type of that session. So we thank everyone who's been involved in this so far to get these sessions started, and I will just turn it over to Carl. Oh, one final thing. Yes, we definitely invite you to join us for a cloudReach review. Please reach out to us, and we would be happy to sign you up and get that started.
All right, excellent presentation. Thank you so much for sharing this new capability that we now can have at our disposal. Before we get into the Q&A discussion part, encourage you to stick around to be a part of that Q&A discussion, as well as be involved, as well as complete the feedback survey that'll be posted in the chat room. Looks like Kashad just posted that. We also encourage the attendees to contact the TOWR-S team, Lee Byerle and Kashad Bowman, for questions about the Satellite Book Club or for configuration of satellite products. We also want to preview next week's presentation. That'll be a week from today on Thursday, March 4th at noon Eastern, where the offices of Amarillo, Texas and Huntsville, Alabama will discuss events where the satellite was used in the absence of radar. And again, before we get into the question and answer discussions, I'd like to remind attendees to submit questions in the chat, or if you'd like to ask a question verbally, please indicate that you'd like to do so within the chat room. And so while people gather their thoughts and maybe want to ask some questions, we'll go ahead and I've actually just kind of want to mention how I'm most excited about the training opportunities where you get to really emulate the work environment using AWIPS that other resources just really can't produce. This is a really exciting capability that I think we're going to have to our disposal. So again, thank you so much for putting in the work for Lee and your team and all those involved. A question that maybe is a little bit more logistical, and you might have touched upon it earlier in your slides, in your presentation, is about how much advance notice do you or would you need to coordinate one of these sessions?
Sure. Yeah. So what we would do is the second we know that you're interested, we'll get on the phone, get on the line with you immediately to talk about it and plan. So within 1 or 2 days, we'll start planning it out. And then depending on what the situation is, we can do that within say a week or so if we're going back and loading things and getting things going. So I would say just give us about a week or so, and we can definitely make it happen.
All right, thank you. And are there any sort of restrictions on when a session can happen? Is there any? Do you foresee any potential like schedule conflicts or any potential downtime where there won't be any availability during a specific period of time?
Sure, yeah. So we have access to the cloud from 7 a.m. to 7 Eastern local time, Monday through Friday. But if there's flexibility to do those sessions at other times, including the weekend, so we could schedule that up for any day of the week.
All right, so sounds like the typical office hours, so to speak, that Monday through Friday. And around, you had mentioned, small groups of, to make it have that dinner party sort of feel, maybe between 5 and 10 people. And is that the target group size that you're looking for an event, or are there any sort of exceptions that you might see potentially in the future?
Yeah, so yeah, we like to have the smaller groups because we think it could be effective that way, but there are certain, there's no hard and fast limit, and especially when it comes to some of the maybe ask an expert or some of those other situations that some might be bigger than others. But yeah, I think something like in the 10 or so range, 5 to 10 is ideal, and just to be able to have a good discussion and to be able to revisit effectively a situation. So yeah, I mean, there's no rule, there's no limit technically on how many that we can have, but that would be our goal, to kind of have the sort of the 5 to 10 range.
All right, thank you. And Jordan, if you have a question, feel free to ask.
Yes, thank you, Carl, and thank you again, Lee, for your presentation, everything you've done for the TOWR-S team. As far as the cloudReach concept of running AWIPS in a cloud, let's say there's other organizations that want to do that, maybe within NOAA or within the Weather Service or our partners like cooperative institutes. Is what you've designed here portable, and are there steps for running, essentially duplicating this cloud environment so that more partners can get access to it on their terms?
Sure, that's a good question, and I might not be able to answer all aspects of it. Maybe I'll get back with some of the folks on the team, but some of the capabilities that we've worked with are basically taken from or borrowed from some of the capabilities that have already been put together by, like I mentioned earlier, the folks at MDL. So that's certainly doable in terms of things like the environment, the AWIPS environment, the localizations. Those are certainly duplicatable, and we have some tools that we use for VLab to get those types of things, configuration controlled. So certainly duplicatable and flexible in that regard.
All right, and it looks like Josie has a short answer to Jordan's question. A simple, I suppose, yes. And then Mike also dropped in a comment that said, great talk. Is this resource available to product developers preparing training material for test beds, such as the hazardous weather test bed? It mentions more specifically, we are preparing for a 2021 HWT demonstration of Prov Severe version 3, but do not have easy AWIPS access due to COVID. Yeah, and that brings up a good example, limitations of COVID right now. This might really help alleviate some lack of AWIPS environment concerns.
Thanks, Mike. Absolutely, yes. We would be more than happy to help with that, and we could schedule something up to just give you an overview and go from there. One of our objectives is to basically make sure that this is available for all ends of the spectrum from exposing the development side into what's being used in operations, and just being in that environment really makes the difference.
Right, and Mike says thank you. He will reach out to you. Michael posted in a question. It says, is it a big challenge to get the right forecasters to participate in a cloudReach session versus their operational duties, such as forecasters at coastal WSOs during the hurricane season?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's basically only at the discretion and availability and interest, of course, and that's a really good point. So yeah, we would definitely want to target situations or times that were convenient to the offices involved. So very new. This is all very new here. And we're kind of learning as we go, including the tools, that I touched on very briefly. So part of that learning is, having only been going for a few months or so, is that kind of challenge. So we'll definitely keep that in mind and listen to the community on how best to do that, and to minimize the impact that any kind of impact or extra load that doing a session like this would involve.
All right, so Michael says thank you, and very impressed from the tool in the venue. And yeah, if anybody else happens to have any questions, it'll be the last call for dropping them in the chat. Lee, I have an additional question for you and the team. Where do you see this, I guess, kind of growing? Do you see this potentially becoming a very widespread and capability that not only WFOs but other researchers and developers will be utilizing extensively within their potentially training programs? You had mentioned fostering collaboration as well. What do you see the capability of this really getting into?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's really a sort of limitless capabilities here, and I think it really will continue to grow. And as we work with some of the other partners around the weather service, we see that more and more activities are involved in using the cloud. And so, yeah, that is our hope, that it continues to provide sort of a more a convenient way to do things. But in terms of like the overall and the broader picture, yeah, I still those decisions are beyond beyond my immediate authority to mention. But yeah, I see really it's going to continue to grow quickly.
All right, thank you. Looks like TJ has a comment. Said he could see this being a great for large-scale event reviews involving multiple WFOs, and could be a part of after-action reports. And that is another possible capability. That's a good point. Thank you, TJ. Well,
yeah,
if there's not any further questions, we'll throw it back to Jordan for some final remarks.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Once again, thank you so much, Lee. I'm really excited about all the work that you and your team have done with cloudReach, and look forward to expansion of that capability to meet our needs here in the Weather Service. Just a few reminders as everybody heads out is that, again, next Thursday, March 4th, 12 noon Eastern Time, we have a great opportunity to talk about how satellite data can be incorporated when you have an unfortunate radar outage. And look for an email from the TOWR-S team on that. Other than that, hope everybody continues to stay well. Look for more information and email from the TOWR-S team for next week's Satellite Book Club seminar. Take care, everybody.